Welcome to Casba Obscura, a place where we look at life in the dark and upside down in hopes to better understand its mysterious beauty. I'm your host, Bash. Today's episode strives to answer a seemingly simple question: how can we live more freely? The discussion revolves around trusting in your nature and breaking free of limits that hold you back. If you're someone who fears death or dying, just know that a flower blooms, a flower wilts, a flower dies, but a flower it is through and through, and its beauty is everlasting. There is no point in talking about life without addressing death. But today is more about dealing with the here and now and giving our lives a new perspective. Many years ago, I listened to a talk by Wayne Dyer called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. In the talk, he speaks about trusting in your own nature and how shifting the way you think can have a huge impact on how you live your life. I was in my very early 20s and I was going through some kind of identity crisis, and I was looking for something interesting, motivational, something different on YouTube that would spark something in me. And I was completely blown away by the concept that I could impact my own life if I simply thought different things. Now, I had always believed that a positive mindset was better than a negative one, but that's not what he was saying. And I'm not sure if that is 100% what I currently believe anymore, anyway. And many years later, I listened to his talk again, and I still have made several different notes based on how his words mattered to me presently. Even though his core message is still there were many new insights this time around. So, the story he tells is about a parrot who pretends to be dead, and his owner opens the cage to bury him, and the bird flies out to the highest tree and is finally set free. It's a pretty touching story because it's not like the bird had a bad life. The owner did treat him very well with tons of food and toys and company, but the parrot was still not able to fly freely and spread its wings, which is a bird's true nature. So the irony of the story is that the bird had to quote unquote die in order to be set free. In some way, we can think of ourselves as a caged bird. How often do we ignore our true nature? How often do we forget our way? Maybe some of us are happy with what we have. We like the nice stuff, the expensive stuff, the big stuff, but that stuff won't help fulfill our life's purpose. I think the key to finding life's purpose is not by acquiring more stuff, but rather to get to know yourself better. And that's the message I also got out of reading the book The Alchemist. The good stuff is hidden in plain sight, right under your nose. And sometimes we can get caged in our lives, more specifically our minds. We can feel trapped or stuck or even imprisoned by some of the constant thoughts that can overwhelm us. And right now, the world at a large scale is going through a lot, and each one of us on our own individual level is also suffering in some way. So I thought it would be good to explore ways of dealing with life's challenges, and that means leaving behind things that ultimately hold us back from really thriving. If you can understand how things work, the way the world works, the way your brain, your mind, your body, the way thoughts work, then you really have a little bit more awareness. You can be a bit more present. The idea of mindfulness as well comes into play, and it sounds like everything that I've been hearing a lot of people talk about. But years ago, it didn't have so much visibility. It didn't have so much presence in the world online that I was aware of. These ideas and this thought, at least back when I was much younger, really affected me and profoundly changed the way that I started to think about life. And what I really found out was I didn't know myself very well. I was actually quite afraid to get to know myself. It comes back to this idea that we need to detach and let things go. And I just didn't want to give up my old self. I wanted to hold on to the people, the places, the things of the past, things that were holding me back presently and blinding my sight to what was really important. So a new change is upon us. Leaves are changing, weather is getting colder. Nature has begun to turn inward and lie dormant, and that's a form of protection. It's a conservation of its energy. And this is the time of year I think it's best for reinvention and creativity. September is usually a month where students start a new class, and as a teacher, I've always felt like this time of year is a fresh new start. If you've been thinking about refreshing your life, or perhaps changing up some of the habits and routines that were working for you in the summer but not so much now, then you're not alone. For me, I also have my birthday around this time, and I tend to think of birthdays as the start of your own personal new year. So it just goes to show you that you can look at this concept at any point in time and see what makes sense for you. Something I've also come to realize is that it's really hard to do that, to change all your habits all at once. Even in January, when people do their New Year's resolutions, everyone's intentions are always very good and they put a lot of things down on lists that they want to accomplish. But at the end of the day, it's very well known that if by like January 15th you haven't started getting into the new habit, it can be really hard to start. So you kind of have to learn to be honest with yourself and not shame yourself for wanting to just live with more joy. Now, the idea of trusting in your nature is one of the things I focused on this time around when I was listening to Wayne Dyer. I had been really interested lately in figuring out connections between how I feel and what is in my nature, because it can be hard to tell sometimes when we're feeling a certain way. It's really about getting to know the emotional value scale. Dyer also talks about this, the shifting from one to another, especially from fear to love. And as an artist, I'm reminded of the value scale. See, the value scale is a concept in art where all the shades, tints, and tones of a color are present, and you have the lightest and the darkest value lined up in order. Also, like a musical scale, individual notes making a scale. In combination together, you can get a pretty detailed picture with tons of depth. The author of Fluke, Brian Klaas, said in an interview, "Our worst moments are linked to our best moments," meaning we cannot have one without the other. And Wayne Dyer said something similar, that hidden in all misfortune is good fortune. So the way I see it is each emotion has a value, and there is a place for each one of them in the picture of our life. We cannot have a picture with just the lightest shade, for example, and we're inevitably going to experience all of these emotions at some point. It's only human. Happiness is not the goal, it's the way. What did he mean by this? We can keep chasing and trying to aim for ultimate happiness and positive states, but we will always be on the ever changing emotional scale. So we need to actively put ourselves into a good place on the scale. Kind of like choosing the type of pencil shade to start your first sketch outline before the shading happens. It may not start off looking great right away, but if you begin with the right shade, all of the other shades will fall into place right where they belong. One of my favorite poets, Hafiz, said, "The small man builds cages for everyone he knows, while the sage, who has to duck his head when the moon is low, keeps dropping keys all night long for the beautiful, rowdy prisoners." To me, this poem really expresses that a wise person, aka the sage, knows that wisdom is key to escaping our internal prisons. If you're really craving something in your life and you're hoping that this time things will be different, you have a vision of what you want, you see it, you have to realize that you're going to have to change some things, or some things are going to have to change for you to get what you want. It's been said a billion times, but the definition of insanity is this idea of repeating the same action over and over again, expecting a different result. It's really because people are afraid to step out of their comfort zone. But imagine you can think that change is possible, but if you're not going to do anything about it, change is going to happen whether you like it or not. So why not make it work in your favor? The world does not quit. And you may be sitting on your couch and the world is still whirling out there. And the more dates that you do stay stagnant and you don't do anything about it, those are the days that pass you by that you could have used to create something. Now, this is not about rushing or urgency. See, there's a quote that says, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." This was said by Lao Tzu, the man who wrote the Tao Te Ching, and this is what Wayne Dyer talks about. That could be a very positive way of looking at situations. Little things really do have a big impact. And it may sound cliche, but this is backed by science. If you think of the ripple effect in physics, you have a series of events connected by cause and effect, impacting everyone and everything all at once. I liked it best when Klaas said, "Knowing and accepting that we have profound influence and very little control can help us accept the limits of what we can and cannot do." It's kind of liberating to accept your nature, to accept who you are and what you're capable of in this life. Essentially, I took this as a lesson on accepting that things will just happen. And I really took it as we all will die one day. That's what I got out of it. It's that we're all here, but we could have not been. Like we could have not existed. Nature is very smart. If a plant can sense that they are far from a little patch of sun, some plants will reach out and turn their whole head towards the light, or they'll stick out a vine to latch onto something. And they're doing it for them, and that's really special. And that's how I would like to think of it. The idea that there's no tomorrow is a mindset that can motivate you. It's not meant to be morbid. It's not even meant to be like YOLO, because I feel like the definition of YOLO nowadays is pretty extreme. It's like trying everything, doing everything all at once. And that's kind of a little careless, in my opinion. But more intentionally, I feel like if you want your life to unfold in a certain way, you just have to go for the right conditions. Flowers, they just grow, they bloom, and they don't have to stress. They're just there. And they have many purposes: to be picked, enjoyed, smelled, admired, drawn, photographed. And so you have many purposes too. If you think of yourself like that, right? That you really are this intelligent being and you don't have to prove to anyone anything. And if your purpose is something more specific than what a flower's purpose is, and you know what that is, then you need to be like that flower or that plant who actively reaches out towards the sun. Even they know when it's time to ask for help. Maya Angelou said, hoping for the best, prepared for the worst, and unsurprised by anything in between. Which reminds me of the Serenity Prayer, which have been words that I've stuck by for a long time. I keep it written in any one of my notebooks. It's a great reminder. Everything's all up in the air all the time. Therefore, I think it's better to learn to love to live with yourself and to strive to find the joy in life as best as you can. So to cry over something like a wilting flower is kind of missing the miracle of the flower itself. And when we focus on negative endings, or you focus on negativity, it only removes this awareness that could have lengthened and filled your life if you had chosen to accept the reality of your own limits and what's possible. Because the truth is, you can't be everything all at once. You can't have everything all at once. It's like when Abraham Hicks says, like, would you want all the food that you were ever supposed to eat in your whole life on the dinner table tonight? No. You would obviously have a very difficult time to digest that. So you want it as it comes, when it's right for you, when you need it, when you're hungry. You want those pauses. I think if you want to be your most authentic self and get what you want in your life and find the meaning, you need to choose yourself. You really need to sit with it, shadows and all. And you really have to find the acceptance that who you are, the good and the bad, is really all part of it. There is a story of a farmer who, at every new situation presented to him, such as his crop being destroyed or his crop being doubled, he remained unchanged. When asked, isn't it terrible? Isn't it wonderful? His answer would always be, maybe. And he was aware that this impermanence exists in all things, and nothing is good or bad for certain, and it's sure to affect someone else in some unknown way. It's also a very good lesson in relieving ourselves of the idea of a fixed outcome while allowing us to learn to accept and let go in the places we are holding too tightly. The main takeaway is that if we can have the wisdom, the knowing, the faith, the acceptance, we can begin to focus on the little things we can do to improve our life and the lives of others. If you have any comments or questions on anything I've said, please let me know. Don't forget to subscribe. There will be a new episode coming your way very, very soon. Hope you have a wonderful day. Peace out.